delighted to be joined at Qissa today by Nabilah Chowdhury, a climate activist and conservationist. Nabilah volunteers at the Jane Goodall Institute and has received numerous awards, including the Young Conservationist of the Year 2021, the Global Canon Young Champion 2022, and the Young Citizen of the Year 22. So, Nabilah, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for joining me too.
Yeah, so let's talk about your work and dive straight in. So the main focus is obviously on kind of climate action and conservation. So you grew up in East London, which is perhaps not the first place that people think about when they think about the kind of natural world. And I used to live there, so I'm allowed to say that. So what advice would you give to people who maybe live in urban areas to feel more connected to the natural world?
I think getting out more and getting involved in your community and community initiatives.
Mm,
I remember when I lived in East London, we did have a community garden. I personally didn't go to it very often. I used to visit it sometimes, but not as often. And we had like a school garden where I think that's where I really got into nature and like
mm.
animals and everything like that. And my mum, she had a balcony just full of different lovely plants and vegetables and all these types of things that you can have in a small flat in London.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. And then at 14, you moved, sorry, in 2014, you moved to Australia, which is obviously a very different landscape to East London. So what was that like? And this sounds like a really like childish question, but I feel like you should ask a person that works in conservation, what's your favorite animal?
So when I did move here, it was very much a culture shock. Here
Mhm.
it's very much different to East London.
Yeah.
Even the moment you come out the airport, I remember the first time I came here was around 2014 as well, before I moved here.
Mhm.
And getting out of Sydney airport and just seeing palm trees was just crazy to me because I had
Yeah.
never gone out the country, let alone I went up furthest I went from London was Birmingham, honestly. So like
That's quite a change.
I know, to go completely to another whole country, and we never get up to, like, 40 in London, do we?
No,
It's 40 degrees here, and it's like,
that's a hot.
oh, it's very hot. I don't know, I can't deal with it half the time.
No, I wouldn't be able to cope.
I'm, like, lying on myself all the time. But, it's a very different atmosphere, and the community obviously is very different, and I think I had a big culture shock that way as well.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah. Lovely. My favorite animal, I
Mhm.
have it's on rotation all the time, but I at the moment, 3 of them. I like seals, like all of them. I love
Great.
seals a lot.
Very cute, yeah.
I like fennec foxes, and I like giraffes.
Nice. Good selection. All all landscapes covered there,
All
I think. Yeah.
yes.
Nice, nice. Okay, so let me get the acronyms right because there's lots of words that I don't know here. So you're a YATS leader and the
Yep,
GEO at the Taronga Conservation Zoo. So could you explain what that means to me, and kind of tell us more about what that involves on a day-to-day basis?
sure. So, when I was really young, like maybe 2017, so when I was 13,
Mhm.
I was like before when I was here, obviously I was still into animals, but not that much. I was not as into it as I am now, which is
Mhm.
very like I'm very thankful for all the opportunities I got. I don't think if I was in London, honestly, I would have got some of the opportunities I do have.
Yeah.
But I joined a program called Youth at the Zoo,
Mhm.
which is YATS for short,
Gotcha. Yeah.
and it's um just a whole bunch of young people. I think it's from the ages of 13 to like 18, 19, where
Okay.
they have, it's just a youth program, and it's at Taronga Zoo,
Yeah.
and you get to, like, talk to other people, you learn about lots of their different, conservation initiatives, what they do in conservation, and then you get to, um, spread that message, talk to people in sometimes you even get to talk to people who are experts in it in their field, and because I've been in that program for such a long time, I think my interest really grew from there because
Yeah.
before that, I didn't actually think you could really get a job in conservation or
Mhm.
even with animals. I just thought you can be a vet, and that's it. And I didn't really
Yeah.
want to go in the medical sphere because at the time I didn't. Now I
Mm.
might be. I don't know.
Mm,
Um,
interesting.
but at the time I was just like, I don't want to cut open animals and stuff like that,
Mm.
so I'm gonna go do steering instead,
But
But
yeah, yeah.
I got into the Trongazu YATS program, and I think it really just showed me all the opportunities you can take in conservation and like what the different avenues and pathways in the animal sphere jobs
Mm.
there are. It's really
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you think of conservation, and I agree. It sounds like a dream that only David Attenborough, Jane Goodall have
cool.
managed to achieve, and you don't think of all the roles that I'm sure are there when you get involved. So that's really exciting. Perfect. So, as well as that, you've also been one of the kind of organisers or part of the school strike for climate Sydney, and also a United Nations youth delegate. So obviously loads of kind of huge organizations. So how do you find being a part of them? Like, is it
Um,
sorry, yeah, go on.
no, keep asking questions. Sorry, yeah.
Is it kind of demotivating to constantly be thinking about this, about climate destruction, or is it really empowering to be working with groups that are trying to fix it?
I think I was involved with School Strike for Climate.
Mhm,
I kind of finished off my time there in 2022, which I was
mhm,
very privileged to be in such a great group with such amazing and inspiring young people. And I think at the very beginning, before I joined, it was very demoralizing because you just hear all the different news is about like the IPCC and the reports about how climate change is becoming disastrous and the temperature just rising. And at 14, that was a lot to hear.
yeah,
And um, I really didn't know how I'd go about kind of just like, I didn't know what to do at that
mhm,
point. I was just literally in year eight here, not even knowing what to do. And then school strike came about, which
mhm,
then I joined them, and it was such an amazing experience while I was there. I
yeah,
think so many, even though we do get the bad news so often, unfortunately, because of
mm,
politicians not taking as much action as they should be, and world leaders not taking as much action as I personally believe they should be.
yeah,
I think being surrounded in such a powerful and just genuinely inspiring group of young people trying to push forward a change, and they really were making forward a change with
mhm,
how much impact and how much kind of, what do you call it, like like the globe was looking at a whole
mm,
bunch of strikes up until COVID. And
yeah,
even after we came out of COVID, people were still just so drawn to to climate strikes and stuff like that. And still today they are, because
yeah,
of how much of an impact it's really made in the globe sphere and global news in general. And politicians have actually been looking at that. And I think through or being involved in that, I felt so much more empowered than I would have without being involved,
yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Feeling like, yeah, as stressful and horrifying as it is to see these things happening, knowing that you're actively doing something rather than just sitting back and kind of watching it, it's definitely, yeah, going to help. But how did you look after your kind of your mental health and kind of combating compassion fatigue for these issues?
I think I was really honestly, I was really bad at it when I
Mm.
first kind of got involved in the climate sphere. And during like 2018, 2019, I kind of threw myself into so many extracurriculars I could have.
Yeah.
Like that's like UN Youth, which is a youth program where it's basically mock United Nations, where you do talk about real issues and sometimes
Mhm.
you have delegates come and talk to you and stuff like that. And I just threw myself into so many different avenues. I
Yeah.
think I really didn't know how to back then. I didn't know how to deal with what do you call it when you're overboarded?
Like burnout.
Burnout,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
I had to deal with burnout until it came 2020 when we went into lockdown.
Mm.
I think I really like, I know it was such a terrible circumstance for so many people, but for me, I think the best thing that came out of it was learning how to take a step back from
Mm.
everything because most of my things either stopped or they kept going, but they were online, so it was a much lower capacity for me.
Yeah.
And I think after that and learning about how many of my other friends they got how they were dealing with burnout and how detrimental burnout can really be because I didn't realize how bad and detrimental if you don't look after yourself and your own self like your mental health and
Mm.
everything and not giving yourself a break how bad that can be for your own mental health and for
Yeah.
your even not even just your mental health your physical health you become drowsy it's not that great and I think
Yeah.
learning from friends and what they do and stuff like that, learning how to spread out the workload and being able to say no to amazing opportunities, which I had a really hard time doing at the very beginning
Yeah.
of everything. I was just like, yes, yes, I need to take every single opportunity, but being able to say no sometimes when it is my time, even though I tell everyone, say yes to all the opportunities you can.
Yeah.
And I do say it a lot and I still think it a lot. I think there's also you're allowed to say no
Mm.
and being able to say no and really learning I think for everyone it's very different how you overcome burnout and how you look after yourself because for some people it's either going to the gym, working out, and then other people it's a mixture of doing that and maybe self-care like doing face masks or meditation or
Mhm.
whatever you choose to do. But for me, I think it was very much getting outdoors much more than I was during
Mm.
COVID, especially because
Yeah.
even though it gave me a step back from everything, I started going a bit like I started doing lots more in like the school strike atmosphere, but
Mm.
doing it all online kind of and organizing online strikes and stuff like that. But being able to step outside, take a deep breath in from the fresh air,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and being able to have a little walk around, which lots of people I'm thankful for the area I live in. I live in Sydney, but in places like London, you weren't really allowed out for
Mm.
that first bit of COVID and that
Yeah.
lockdown. I'm very thankful I have like trees and we had the 1 kilometer radius where you can go out once a
Okay.
day to
Yeah.
exercise. So I'm happy about that. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot, especially kind of alongside your studies, as well, and trying to balance everything. So I'm glad you were able to, yeah, recalibrate. Um, so more positive things. In 2022, you won the Young Champion of the Year at the Global Good Awards. So how old were you when you won that, and what was that experience like?
I was 18 when I won that.
Nice. Okay.
Um, it was it was crazy. Like I never even first of all, like I didn't think I was gonna get like I didn't even know about the award
Mhm.
to begin with. I got nominated, I got sent an email and I was like, "What on earth is this award?" It
Yeah.
seems a bit who's nominating me for some award in London? Like, what?
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Okay, whatever, nothing's gonna go through with it." But it's cool I got nominated. I wanna know who nominated me. I still to this day don't know who nominated me.
Oh, interesting. That's very
It's
cool.
very interesting, and I hope they one day tell me. But, I got nominated, and then I became a semi-finalist and then a finalist,
Well,
and
yeah.
that was just crazy to me because I didn't know I would be able to even win an award that's on such a global scale,
Mm.
and everyone in my category was doing such amazing I genuinely didn't think I should win over them because they were doing such incredible things,
Yeah.
and reading their bios and talking to them because we got to talk to them at some points
Mhm.
was just incredible.
Yeah.
And we had people who were doing friendship. We had this girl. She was in the category below me, and she was doing like friendship benches and stuff like that. And we
Mm.
had someone in America who was helping out with reading for young kids who can't read, and it was just incredible with the amount of things everyone was doing. It was
Yeah.
crazy. I have so instead of A levels in the UK, we have our
Mm.
HCs here,
Okay.
and um I remember it was the night of my HSC, one of my exams, and then I had another one the next morning. But then I was like, okay, I'll go home, I'll get to sleep, I'll
Mhm.
wake up in time for this award.
Oh, yeah. Middle of the night for you, I guess.
Like it was 2 a.m.
Oh, yeah, that's
I
nice.
just knocked out. I didn't wake up until 2:30, and I was like, Oh my god. I like, I was half delirious. There's a video of it where I'm half delirious and I'm on the computer in my bed and I'm like, "Okay, let's see what happens," you know? I just wanna kinda see. And then I went and I was like, "What on earth?" And, like, I don't think it actually like, I was bad like, my brain, it just kind of blasted, and then I was on it for a while, and I think I didn't quite remember because then I went to sleep and I woke up, and then my mum was like, "Oh, so how did the awards night go?" And I was like, "I won! I won!" It's like it was the time difference is such a big time
Mm.
difference, and I don't know, it was just such a crazy opportunity I got, and then in November, I was going to London by chance because my family lives in London,
Mm.
and I got to go to the Canon office and make a video
Oh,
about
nice.
what I do, which is
Yeah.
really cool and interesting to see what they do for young change makers and how they advocate for people who
Mm.
are younger and they want to like give them a platform
Yeah.
to spread their message,
Okay,
which is
that's really
I didn't
cool.
even think Canon did that before I got into
Yeah.
this award, and it was so crazy to see like I think his name is Adam, but someone Adam from Canon, he was
Mm.
talking to me and he was telling me all the incredible things that Canon is doing at the moment
Mm.
for amplifying young voices so lots of people can hear them and be able to listen to other people's stories, which is so cool.
That's really cool. And good that you had another video of you, not just you half awake in bed when you received the award.
Thankfully.
Yeah. So your work is like obviously so impressive, everything that you've done and achieved. Um, but as I said in your introduction, like all your awards have been like classified as youth award or young activist, young champion. So do you feel like the youth element makes people underestimate you, or do you think it's a strength?
I think first going into like conservation and like kind of just getting involved with community action and stuff like that,
Mm.
I really thought that people really look down on young people because there's always that stigma that these youth activists are taking days off school and
Mm.
the young people, they should be studying instead. And I think once we saw the first few strikes that I helped out, it just and see the amount of people that turned up to these strikes
Mm.
was really incredible because you were able to see the amount of impact that young people really and truly do make.
Yeah,
And I think that sometimes we, as young people, we really think that we can't make a change because we're
yeah.
just young and can't do anything and we still need to study and you know you need to get into university if you're going to do that or
Mm.
college or whatever you want and then find a job, but it's really not like that. You can genuinely make a change from such a young age or whatever you do. And it was especially being involved in um, getting honors and awards like this is
Mm.
really just like just make me see and make me get more connected with young people who also
Mm.
do this type of work, but in different kind of spheres in
Yeah.
a way. Like people doing things for people with disabilities and
Mm.
people with let's just say with sporting passions or whatever it may be. It's just crazy seeing what they do and it's just really empowering seeing like people as young as 9 years old making such a big change at 9. When I was 9, I wouldn't have ever thought I could do something like that. I would
Yeah,
just
yeah.
I'm going to school and I'm gonna become a doctor, which is great, which is great.
Yeah.
But I would always think, "Oh, it's the adults who are gonna make the decisions
Mhm.
and it's the policymakers," whereas I think through not just these awards, but all the organizations I've been part of and all the youth, like, groups I've been part of, I've really been able to see young people make such a huge change
Mm.
in what they do and
Yeah.
such a huge change in general. Because we see Greta Thunberg when she was younger, she made
Mhm.
such a huge, like, change, and we see all these younger people who are making changes in even the political sphere in
Mm.
like exactly, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could, I'm sure, discuss the pros and cons of social media for days, but one of the pros is that young people are much more kind of globally aware and feel like they do have a voice. And obviously, you know, them being able to see people like you winning awards, then I'm sure that inspires. So well done. um, this might be wrong, but are you currently undertaking a conservation degree? Is that what you're doing at the moment?
Uh, yes.
Nice,
Um,
excellent. Tell me more. What are your plans for the future?
so I recently finished my certificate two in animal studies,
Okay,
which was
cool.
really good. So from that, I can work with basically hands-on with animals and stuff like
Mhm.
that. In
Okay,
uni,
nice.
I'm doing um, a Bachelor of Science in Conservation
Okay.
and a Bachelor of Advanced Studies in International Relations. I think that's my degree. I'm pretty sure that's my degree.
Sounds about
Um,
right. Yeah, why not?
something like that. And it's connected with the University of Sydney and Taronga Zoo because
Okay, nice.
I've been with Taronga Zoo for such a long time that when I turned 14, when they started making the course, it's like, I'm going to do that. And I've been
Yeah.
set on and I got in, which is really good.
Oh, amazing.
Um, from that, I hopefully want to I want to do a lot of things, honestly. I think that the amount of things I want to do is probably too many, but we'll see how we but the general sphere of things that I want to do at the moment is after I finish my degree, I want to work like in conservation and like the sciencey side of it. So
Mhm.
taking data in the field and stuff like that. But I also do want to work in international relations, but
Mhm.
on the environment side. So
Yeah.
looking at diplomacy and the global diplomacy in and policy in conservation and how the legislation and environmental laws and stuff go about
Okay.
happening.
Nice. Oh yeah, cool. That is a lot of things, but I have every faith that you will you'll be able to achieve them all.
Thank
Um,
you.
so I'm gonna read a quote that you said in a previous interview because I found it really great. So you said we should be uplifting the voices of those who are and will be most affected by climate change, such as young people, people of color, and First Nation communities. So obviously uplifting other people's voices is obviously really important to us at Kissa. That's what we're all about. And I agree that it's something that's overlooked in big conversations about climate change. So how do you think that we could to get more people from these communities involved in kind of advocacy work?
I think there is lots of people who, example, are First Nations or young people or people of color involved in these spheres.
Hmm.
I think that the thing that we really need to push for is getting these voices and being able to really like amplify them these voices because when first started like when I first started climate activism, it was unfortunately only um older people
Hmm.
and there wasn't many people of color in the sphere. What there was lots of people of color in the sphere, but they weren't getting interviews from people,
Mm.
and they weren't um, being amplified by any news networks. And I think really just not just looking for people of color in specifically, but
Mm.
being able to diversify your range or not like the media being able to diversify their ranges and
Mm.
actually looking for like First Nations communities because lots of media outlets they tend to just look at like the first thing they can find
Yeah.
and the majority aren't people of color, majority aren't First Nations people,
Hmm.
unfortunately, in the sphere, but there is still a lot of people of color in the sphere, and there's
Yeah.
lots of First Nation people in the sphere, and there's lots of young people in the sphere. I
Mm.
think really just finding those voices and being able to cater like your platform for those voices and being
Mhm.
inclusive of those voices because sometimes there is media who do cater for these voices, but they've said things in the past which is really like contradicting
Mm.
to what they're now saying that they stand for. I
Yeah.
just think making a welcoming space and being able to really put in the effort to look for voices like First Nation voices and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There does sometimes, a tendency to just fall back on the same, three or four
Yeah.
people that everyone speaks to. So yeah, I definitely agree. Um, so thinking about kind of exploring the effects of climate change and looking at potential futures, whether they're positive futures or not so positive futures. Like I personally find books and literature like really a really good way of exploring that. So I just wondered if there are any books or films, podcasts, anything at all that you would recommend. Anything that springs to mind?
I think there's one called 100 Conversations about climate change or something like that.
Hmm.
It's by the Powerhouse Museum in Sydney.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah.
have a podcast in on Spotify, which is really good, and it's just a very diverse group of people talking about climate change. It's young people, old people, people of color, people with disabilities, just a whole range of different people. And I think and people from different careers, people from
Mm-hmm.
like climate careers. I think there's also a nurse in there somewhere, and it's such a good podcast to see everyone's different perspectives on climate change and
Yeah,
how everyone thinks of climate change. And I just think I learned a lot from that podcast in general. I think also just looking like not looking on the news, but looking at figures such as like David Attenborough, obviously, and
yeah, love.
um, but yeah, looking at those voices and really and their platforms because they do tend to talk about climate change a lot.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you, yeah, so much, Nabila. I really, really enjoyed talking with you. So, a final question: in work or in life, in general, who inspires you?
I think my family very much inspire me, especially my mum. She inspires me a lot because she's gone through a lot of things
Mhm.
and she's been able to push through them. And a figure, like a person who's famous,
Mhm.
that inspires me a lot is Jane Goodall. She inspires me
Amazing.
quite a lot, and I've just kind of looked up to her since I was really young.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much, Nabila. It's been lovely to speak with you.
Thank you so much too.